Algeria is a large country in North Africa, bordered by the Mediterranean Sea to the north and the Sahara Desert to the south. It is the biggest country in Africa by land area. The story of Algeria is long and full of changes. It includes ancient civilizations, great empires, colonial rule, and the long fight for independence. The people of Algeria, especially the Berbers and Arabs, have shaped its identity through thousands of years of struggle, culture, and resilience. The land that is now Algeria has been home to people for tens of thousands of years. Evidence of very early humans has been found in different parts of the country, showing that people have lived there since prehistoric times. In the southeast of Algeria lies the Tassili Niger Plateau, where there are ancient rock paintings and carvings. These artworks, some more than 8,000 years old, show people hunting, herding cattle, and living in greener times when the Sahara was not yet a desert. These early communities were the ancestors of the Berber people. The Berbers, also called Amazigh, are the original inhabitants of North Africa. They developed unique languages, traditions, and ways of life that still exist today. Over time, different foreign powers came into contact with the Berbers. Around 1000 BCE, the Phoenicians, who were traders from what is now Lebanon, arrived along the North African coast. They built trading posts and small cities along the coast, including in what is now Algeria. The most famous of their colonies was Carthage, in modern Tunisia. Carthage became a great power and controlled much of the coastal trade, including areas of present-day Algeria. In 146 BCE, the Romans defeated Carthage and took control of North Africa. They brought Algeria under Roman rule and made it part of the Roman Empire. Roman cities such as Tipasa, Timgad, and Hippo Regius were built with roads, theaters, and baths. The region became an important source of food for the Roman Empire, especially wheat and olive oil. During this period, Christianity spread across North Africa. One of the most famous early Christian thinkers, Saint Augustine, was born in the Algerian city of Tagaste, now Souk Ahras. He later became the bishop of Hippo Regius, modern Annaba. The Romans controlled Algeria for several centuries, but by the 5th century CE, their power began to weaken. Germanic tribes called the Vandals invaded from Europe and took over parts of North Africa. Later, in the 6th century, the Byzantine Empire, the eastern part of the Roman Empire, reconquered the area, but they were unable to control it completely. The local Berber tribes remained powerful in the mountains and the desert. In the 7th century, Muslim Arab armies arrived from the east, spreading Islam across North Africa. The Berbers resisted at first, but over time they converted to Islam. This was a major turning point in Algeria's history. Arabic language and Islamic culture began to spread, though Berber customs and language continued to exist alongside them. Islam became a unifying religion for the people of North Africa. After the Arab conquest, Algeria became part of several Islamic empires. The first important Berber-led state was the Rustamid dynasty, which ruled from the city of Tahert in western Algeria between the 8th and 10th centuries. The Rustamids followed a moderate form of Islam called Ibadism. Later, large Berber empires such as the Almoravids and Almohads rose in power. These empires controlled not only Algeria, but also parts of Morocco, Tunisia, and even Spain. They spread Islamic culture, built great cities, and encouraged learning and trade. After the fall of the Almohads in the 13th century, Algeria was divided into several small kingdoms. One of them was the Kingdom of Tlemcen, ruled by the Zayyanid dynasty. It became a rich center for trade and learning, linking the Mediterranean coast with the Sahara and sub-Saharan Africa. But constant wars between local rulers and invasions from neighboring powers weakened these states. By the early 16th century, Spain had started to expand its power along the North African coast. Spanish forces captured several Algerian ports. In response, the local people turned to the Ottoman Turks for help. The Ottomans were powerful Muslim rulers based in Istanbul, then called Constantinople. In 1518, two Turkish brothers, Aruj and Hayreddin Barbarossa, came to Algeria to fight the Spanish. They captured Algiers and later placed the region under Ottoman protection. For more than 300 years, Algeria was part of the Ottoman Empire, but it had a great deal of independence. The country was ruled by a local governor called a Dey, based in Algiers. The Ottoman rulers relied on the support of soldiers called janissaries, who were mostly of Turkish origin. During this period, Algiers became a famous center of sea trade and also of piracy. Algerian corsairs, or pirates, attacked European ships in the Mediterranean, demanding tribute from European countries. This brought wealth and power to Algiers, but also conflict with European nations. Although the Ottoman system kept order in the cities, the countryside remained under the control of local tribes and religious leaders. Life was hard for many ordinary people, but Algeria maintained a distinct identity during this time, mixing Berber, Arab, and Ottoman influences. In 1830, France invaded Algiers, starting a long period of colonization that lasted 132 years. The French army defeated the Ottoman forces and slowly conquered the rest of the country. The invasion was brutal, and Algerian resistance was strong. One of the most famous resistance leaders was Emir Abdelkader, a scholar and warrior who united many tribes to fight against the French from 1832 to 1847. He became a symbol of Algerian resistance and national pride. After years of fighting, he was eventually captured and exiled, but his legacy lived on. French rule changed Algeria deeply. The French took the best lands and gave them to European settlers, known as colons or pieds noirs. These settlers built cities, farms, and businesses, while many Algerians were forced off their land and became poor farmers or laborers. France treated Algeria not as a colony, but as an extension of its own territory. However, only the European settlers enjoyed full rights as French citizens. The majority Muslim population faced discrimination and had few political or civil rights. They were governed by a harsh legal system called the Code de l'Indigénat. Over time, the French introduced schools, railways, and new industries, but most Algerians did not benefit. Instead, resentment grew. In the early 20th century, educated Algerians began demanding reforms, equal rights, and eventually independence. After World War II, when many Algerians fought for France, the situation worsened. In 1945, French troops killed thousands of Algerians in the town of Sétif after peaceful protests for independence. This event convinced many that freedom could not be achieved through negotiation. On November 1, 1954, a group called the National Liberation Front, FLN, began an armed uprising against French rule. This marked the start of the Algerian War of Independence. The FLN used guerrilla tactics, attacking French soldiers and settlers in both rural and urban areas. The French army responded with massive force, using torture, imprisonment, and executions to try to stop the rebellion. The war was extremely violent and caused terrible suffering on both sides. The war lasted almost 8 years and became one of the bloodiest decolonization wars in the 20th century. Around 1 million Algerians are believed to have died. The conflict also divided French society, with many in France questioning their country's actions. International pressure grew on France to end the war. Finally, in 1962, the Evian Accords were signed, granting Algeria full independence. On July 5, 1962, Algeria officially became a free nation. After independence, Algeria faced enormous challenges. The country had been devastated by war, and most of the European settlers had left, taking with them much of the expertise needed to run the economy. The new Algerian government, led by the FLN and its first president, Ahmed Ben Bella, adopted a socialist system. The government nationalized industries and farms, trying to rebuild the economy and provide education and health care. Ben Bella also supported liberation movements in other African and Arab countries. However, his rule became increasingly authoritarian, and in 1965 he was overthrown by his defense minister, Houari Boumediene. Boumediene ruled until 1978. He focused on building a strong state, nationalizing Algeria's oil and gas resources, which became the backbone of the economy. The government invested heavily in industry and education. Algeria also became active in international politics, supporting other nations fighting colonialism and joining the non-aligned movement during the Cold War. Boumediene's rule brought stability and development, but political freedom was limited, and the FLN remained the only legal political party. After Boumediene's death, Chadli Benjedid became president. He introduced some economic reforms in the 1980s, but falling oil prices led to economic problems and rising unemployment. In 1988, mass protests broke out demanding political change. This led to the legalization of new political parties, including the Islamic Salvation Front, FIS, which gained strong support. In 1991, the FIS won the first round of Algeria's parliamentary elections. Fearing an Islamic takeover, the army canceled the election and banned the FIS. This sparked a bloody civil war between the government and Islamist groups. The war lasted through the 1990s and caused the deaths of up to 200,000 people. Many civilians were caught in the violence. Villages were attacked, and terror spread across the country. It was one of the darkest periods in Algeria's history. In 1999, Abdelaziz Bouteflika became president and introduced a policy of national reconciliation. He offered amnesty to many militants who laid down their weapons. Gradually, the violence decreased, and Algeria began to recover. The country's oil and gas wealth helped rebuild the economy. However, corruption, unemployment, and lack of political freedom continued to cause discontent. Bouteflika stayed in power for 20 years, until 2019, when huge peaceful protests known as the Hirak movement forced him to resign. The people demanded democracy, transparency, and an end to military control over politics. Today, Algeria remains a proud and independent nation. It is a member of the African Union, the Arab League, and the United Nations. The economy depends mainly on oil and natural gas, but the government is trying to diversify it. The population is young, and many Algerians want more opportunities and freedom. The country faces challenges such as corruption, unemployment, and political reform, but it also has great potential. Culturally, Algeria is rich and diverse. It blends Arab, Berber, African, and Mediterranean influences. Berber languages are now officially recognized alongside Arabic, and there is renewed pride in the country's mixed heritage. Islam remains a central part of Algerian identity, and family and community are important in everyday life. The history of Algeria is one of endurance, courage, and change. From ancient Berber kingdoms to the Roman Empire, from Ottoman rule to French colonization, and from a brutal war of independence to modern challenges, the Algerian people have always fought to preserve their identity and freedom. Today, Algeria stands as a nation shaped by its past, but looking toward the future, determined to build a society that reflects the dreams of all its people.